So today I'll be talking about how do you continue to pre-train LLMs as well as some multilingual work we have done. This is, as she mentioned, part of Irina's collaboration at CircAI with compute granted to us by OLCF. So let's start with talking about the current landscape of LLMs, right? So as we saw, uh, especially starting with chinchilla, and then we have llama, red pajama, llama 2, that one can achieve really really good performance with much smaller models when trained for much more data, right? um, Even though this is not the compute optimal way of training, especially llama and like red pajama, this helps build smaller models which are good for inference and good for edge devices, etc., etc. So training on much more data can help you achieve great performance. Essentially, the idea is we are still in the over-parameterized regime of these models, and there's still a lot of data you can feed in. But we keep getting new data all the time. We keep seeing new data in various forms. We get new data every year from Common Crawl. We see newer sources of data, newer domains of data, better compilations and pre-processed data sets. For example, Slim Pajama, etc. Slim Pajama was the deduplicated version of Red Pajama. It was just 600 billion tokens, much more deduplicated and cleaner variant of the Red Pajama dataset. We have the instruction tuning and alignment data, which we collect by user interaction for RLHF. We get new languages to build multilingual models and new modalities of data to build generalist agents finally. As you can see on the plot on the right, the amount of data we keep getting every month from Common Crawl is increasing drastically. So how is all of this new data being used currently, right? So currently what's happening is every time a new data set is available, all the data is mixed together. We, based on intuition, based on preliminary experiments, we choose a weighted combination of these different data sets, and then the models are trained from scratch, IID, on this new composed data set. uh, IID training is known to be quite stable, gives us the best representations, probably the best performance for the amount of data and compute we have. But the problem with this whole approach is this is very expensive, right? Both in terms of compute and in terms of time. Every time we create a new data set, we have to like do the whole training process again, and we have to spend a bunch of time waiting for this new data set, preparing this new data set at this scale. So it's quite expensive. Is there a better approach to this? As you can see in the plot on the right, the amount of compute being spent to train these models is almost exponentially increasing at this point. So can we instead, build lifelong learning systems? Can we take inspiration from the continual learning literature and build lifelong learning systems? So we keep training on new data, right? We take the existing checkpoints from, say, Hugging Face, and we keep training on new data, and we keep updating the model's knowledge and expanding its capabilities. Is this possible? How do we approach this? This is the kind of question which we started digging into. So there are many scenarios where we collect new data, especially interactively. Let's say we trained on Pile first, then we get a new Slim Pajama data set, then we get Hindi, then we get the 2023 dump of Common Crawl, then we get a German data set, so on and so forth. So the main challenge is to address here is one, we need to learn new data efficiently, and two, we want to be able to avoid catastrophic forgetting, where whenever we train on new data, we don't want to be forgetting all the past knowledge that the model has already learned, right? Even when the new data is at the scale of pre-training data. So there are a lot of studies which have been done in the continual learning literature, but in most cases the amount of data they're training on is much smaller than the original pre-trained data set, right? And people have shown ossification effects where if your second data set is much larger than your first data set, then it's probably better to train from scratch on the second data set, which is not great news. But we actually noticed after extensive experimentation with LLMs that we did not face ossification even when the second data set was the same size as the first data set. I'll be talking about that very soon. Any questions so far? All right. So, in terms of related works, there's the scaling laws for transfer paper, which is very popular, which basically talks about how one can save on the amount of data needed to train on a new task if you use a pre-trained model. And as you scale up both the model size and the pre-trained model data set size, the amount of new data you need to learn a new task gets smaller and smaller, which is great news. The effect of scale on catastrophic forgetting is another paper where they showed that as you scale up models, both size and dataset size, the amount of catastrophic forgetting they face as you get a new dataset is much, much lesser, which is also great news for us. One of the key points established in scaling velocity transfer was the ossification effect, where they showed if the new task has a ton of data, then it's better to train from scratch and you'll actually lose performance if you take a pre-trained model. However, we did not notice this effect in our experiments. So moving on, let's first start with the case study of just sticking to the same language. So let's say you want to train on new data from the same language which your pre-trained model was in. So um, let's take the simple scenario where you first pre-train a model on Pile, or you already have an existing checkpoint of, say, Pythia, which was trained on 300 billion tokens of the Pile dataset, which is a general dataset composed of various sources of data. And then you continue training on a 300 billion token version of Slim Pajama. It's just randomly subsampled Slim Pajama dataset of 300 billion tokens. Um, we follow the same learning rate schedule which everybody follows generally, which is you do a linear warm up and a cosine decay. So the first model was trained with a linear warm up and a cosine decay, and the second model is again warmed up and decayed. um, when people usually fine tune LLMs on small amounts of data, they usually don't do the warm up part because of the small amount of data. The intuition behind why we are trying to warm up is the learning rate which you ended up with after the first task is so small that you won't learn the new data very, very efficiently. So we'll see if this hypothesis is true. Um, the baselines which we compared the sequentially trained models are the lower bound where you don't take a pre-trained checkpoint and you just train on the new data sets from scratch, which is very, very common nowadays. And the upper bound we're hoping or we're guessing is you combine both Pile and Slim Pajama to form a 600 billion token data set, and you train on the mixture of these two data sets, IID, with just one schedule. So the first variable which we varied was the warm up duration for the warm up period of the second task. If The hypothesis or our initial guess was that if you have a longer warm up, there's a smoother transition to the new task, and so you'll face lesser forgetting. And if your warm up is too quick, then you'll scramble up your weights and end up forgetting a lot of your past knowledge. Interestingly, what we found was that irrespective of the warm up period, they all end up reaching the same performance at the end of the training. They all face the same amount of catastrophe forgetting. The second experiment which we tried was varying the maximum learning rate. The intuition was maybe using a much higher learning rate in the second task will cause forgetting of the past task, and using a much lower learning rate will help preserve the past knowledge but not help learn the new data efficiently. And that is kind of what we noticed as well. As you can see on the plots here, um, the constant learning rate is the brown curve. The black curve is a learning rate of 1.5 in -4. The blue curve is the normal learning rate schedule, which is what everybody uses for models at this scale. This is at the 410 million scale, and the orange curve is double the learning rate, which is 6e -4. So what we notice is as you keep increasing the learning rate, you do face forgetting of the first task, which is the Pile task, but you do learn the second task better and better. So altering the max learning rate can be an effective strategy to trade off between adapting to the new task versus forgetting the first task. The third experiment which we tried was the effect of replay. So as you saw in the previous task, there is some amount of forgetting, right? The model started off with a Pile validation loss of around 2.2, but it ended up with a much higher validation loss on the first task. So can replay help alleviate this forgetting by replaying some of the past data? And what we noticed was something very interesting. Even a very, very small percent of past replay drastically helps alleviate the amount of forgetting while still maintaining the performance on the new task. Keep in mind here, to keep the same compute budget to make all the comparisons fair, we actually skip some portion of the second task to include the new replay data. So it sees lesser and lesser uh, part of the second task and more replay from the first task. And as you can see over here, even 0.5% of the replay helped alleviate forgetting by a drastic amount while still keeping the performance approximately the same. One interesting extreme experiment which we ran was 50% replay. So we basically choose 50% of our second task and 50% of the data is from the first task, and we see that we can actually recover the IID performance by doing this. So the red dotted line you see in both the plots is the uh, performance when you train on both the data sets mixed IID. And we can see when you do 50% replay, which is the purple curve, you end up with almost the same validation loss on both the tasks um, by doing this strategy. Though you do lose performance compared to just training on the second data set. So, moving on to the real question, is continual learning a feasible strategy? How does it compare to sequential settings? So, the three key takeaways from these particular plots is one, there is still forgetting compared to training IID. Second, it's always better, at least in these particular scenarios, to start with a pre trained checkpoint. So, as you can see on the right plot, which is the validation loss on the second task, we get better performance by starting from a pre-trained checkpoint instead of training from scratch on that second dataset, even though the second dataset size is as large as the first dataset size. So we did not notice the effect of ossification where training from scratch is actually better if your dataset size is as large as the first dataset size. We do notice that starting from pre-trained checkpoint does help. Um, any questions so far? So everything we studied so far was at the 410M scale. Do these trends hold true even at the 9 billion parameter scale, which is usually what people have been playing around with? And we notice the same trends, interestingly. So even at the 9B scale, there is forgetting. Uh, at the 9B scale as well, it is beneficial to start from a pre-trained checkpoint, and we are able to achieve great performance by doing continued pre-training. So far, everything I talked about was validation losses. What happens when you actually try to evaluate them on popular benchmarks like HelloSwag and ARC, etc.? So we ran some evaluation results, and interestingly, what we found was in some particular benchmarks like HelloSwag, continually training models actually ended up giving better performance than doing IID training. The intuition behind this is probably Slim Pajama is a much higher quality data set for these particular benchmarks compared to just the pile, which is why when you're continuing to train on Slim Pajama with a small amount of replay, you focus more on the Slim Pajama data set, allowing you to get better performance in these benchmarks. So what we noticed was, especially on HelloSwag, we ended up with better performance compared to IID. And on most of the other tasks, we were almost able to recover most of the IID performance on these benchmarks with half the compute and using the same amount of data. So continuing to train even on very large data sets from pre-trained checkpoints is a feasible strategy and highly recommended based on the study which we performed. Um, so this is another plot just to reestablish that same point. So our 9B model uses around half the compute which the Red Pajama model uses, but in all but one benchmark, we actually outperform the Red Pajama model while using less than half the compute and using just 300 billion tokens instead of 1.2 trillion tokens. We also performed better than the Pythia 12B model at the 9B scale while still using lesser compute than the 12B model. So now let's move on to the topic of training on new languages. So we applied all the insights which we learned so far on training on Indic languages, particularly Hindi. And basically what we did was we started from a pile pre-trained Pathia checkpoint. We trained on a mixture of Hindi and English. So we included Slim Pajama, the stack for code, and a Hindi dataset consisting of around 60 billion tokens. We did three epochs over the Hindi dataset because of the limited amount of data. We did a total of 300 billion tokens of continued training. And we use the same learning rate rewarming up strategy where we do enough warm up so that there's not too much forgetting, but there's also enough warm up for learning the new task and then doing a cosine decay at the end. And the results which we found was the training loss decreased very smoothly with a few spikes early on, and the Hindi validation loss smoothly decreased as well. An interesting thing we saw was that the performance on the past English data set of Pile Stack Exchange continued decreasing, and the validation loss on the new Slim Pajama data set also continued to smoothly decrease throughout training. And we ran some benchmarks on translated versions of the popular benchmarks of HelloSwag, ARC, Human Eval, and what we found was we got great performance. It outperformed the popular Bloom model and existing English models like Pythia and Llama 7B as well in terms of the Hindi benchmarks. Um, in terms of challenges, future works, and research directions which we are exploring learning rate schedules further, some sort of infinite learning rate schedules where you don't have to do the repeated warm up and decay. One of the experiments which I did not really dig into right now was the amount of forgetting which we notice. Is it purely because of um, the data distribution shift, or is there also an effect of learning rate schedule, warm up, and decay? And so what we did was we took a pile pre-trained checkpoint and continued training again on a second epoch of pile, right, while following the repeated learning rate schedule, and we found there is still forgetting even though there's no distribution shift. So we are trying experiments with infinite learning rate schedules, which are constant across tasks. Therefore, we avoid the repeated warm up and decay. Other questions which we're exploring is what kind of replay to do, how much replay to do, how do you preserve knowledge during alignment using RLHF, um, active data sampling, what data to train with, and what data points that can be skipped to make it more efficient, better optimizers. An interesting question, which is very exciting, is how do you keep expanding the model capacity? So while training, can we go from a 9 billion parameter model to a 12 billion parameter model? And the last thing which we have been exploring is adding new modalities. So how do you train on new modalities to eventually, build generalist agents? So the popular Flamingo paper, they face around 8% of loss when the LLM is not frozen. So they ended up with a solution of freezing the entire LLM, which obviously also prevented them from learning new knowledge and doing cross-modal transfer. So how do we keep training efficiently on new modalities while preserving past knowledge and also learning new knowledge? So exploring strategies of replay, better learning rate schedules, etc. Those are the main slides. I wanted to leave enough room for questions and discussion. So excited to hear any questions you all have.